Piers Morgan is one of the most influential people in the UK, but he's also one of the most dangerous. Let me show you why. If you haven't noticed already, Piers Morgan has been inviting a lot of pro-Palestinian voices onto his platform at Talk TV. It's all part of his wider act. Piers Morgan appears neutral. He appears as a credible journalist, but actually he's just peddling the same narrative everyone else is peddling, just in a way that appears to be common sense, but it's actually very dangerous. Let's watch his interview with Lowkey to look at how he uses it to his benefit and how he damages the Palestinian narrative.
Welcome back to Piers Morgan Uncensored, live from New York City. Well, British Iraqi rapper and pro-Palestine activist Kareem Dennis, better known as Lowkey, has been a powerful and influential pro-Palestinian voice before and during this conflict. Well, I'm joined now by Lowkey, who's at our London studio. Lowkey, thank you very, very much indeed for joining me. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Piers.
I mean, on the issue of whether I'm pro-Israel, I don't have a horse in this race or this war.
And there it is, that's the first example. I don't have a horse in this race, I try to be balanced. If you've ever heard the quote that neutrality in the face of oppression is actually just oppression, that's what he's doing here. But he's making it look like it's the normal approach. Yeah, you know what, you shouldn't actually have a horse in the race when it comes to a potential ethnic unaliving of a certain group. You know, you should be perfectly neutral. It's a self-replicating cycle to peddle more propaganda. You get people on that make you look like you're given a fair platform, not actually give them a fair platform, and then do it again and make it seem as though you're giving them the platform, when actually you're giving your own narrative and the existing narrative the platform it already had, just with a little twist, a little more drama, as they like it in mainstream media.
I think we've had more pro-Palestinian people on this show in the last 2 weeks than any other news show in the world, and they've been getting huge audiences. So I would take issue with that charge that somehow I'm slanted one way or another. I think this whole thing is a complete tragedy. I know that you've been committed to the plight of the Palestinians for a long time, going back at least 15 years from what I can see in terms of you travelling to Gaza. What was your reaction when you first heard about these attacks on October the 7th?
And that's the big one. That is the most dangerous question you could ask anyone about the Palestinian liberation cause. Asking them about October 7th, one of the most devastating attacks in Israel's history, is obviously something that people should condemn. But starting the conversation off about the general occupation of Palestine and basing it off of a terrorist attack that happened a few weeks ago is just ahistorical. The reality is this issue has been going on for much longer, and framing it in this way only leads to pro-Israeli talking points. It leads to talking points about how Israel can retaliate, what part of Gaza Israel can take back, what part of Gaza Israel can bomb, what amount of humanitarian aid is allowed into Gaza. We don't actually talk about the Palestinians' rights or what they're allowed to do, or where they can move, or what safety they can have. So it might seem like a genuine question, but it's actually wrapped in a very disingenuous proposal. And that proposal is to ask you to attempt to limit the Israeli reaction rather than to look at the wider causes of why this attack happened in the first place, and to realise that this attack is actually the result of 75 years of occupation, which has damaged both Israelis and Palestinians, right? There's been bloodshed on both sides, significant bloodshed on both sides, but the occupation of Palestine is what is causing it. And the refusal to see that is what makes Piers Morgan so dangerous, because he makes it look like it's not even a position you should potentially argue about. It's simply common sense that you should only talk about this attack and nothing else.
Well, let's be clear. Reading the testimony of survivors of October 7th from Kibbutz Be'eri, like Yasmin Porat, was extremely harrowing. What she alleges is not only that her husband was killed in the initial takeover, but also she then says that the Israeli military tanks fired on the room where the hostages were, killing 12 Israeli civilian captives.
Lowkey does a fantastic job of showing the audience how this wider conflict, this wider issue has resulted not only in Palestinian deaths, but also Israeli deaths, and how Israelis are suffering as a result of the brutal occupation in Palestine. That's the real common sense approach, not Piers Morgan's, oh, you know, I haven't got a horse in the race. Common sense is freeing Palestine, making sure that Palestinians have rights.
Right, let me respond to you. You tweeted on October the 7th, the arrogance to believe you could keep 2 million trapped in an open-air prison indefinitely, ... That appears to have been your only comment about what happened. So just for the record, do you condemn what Hamas did that day?
I condemn the genocidal conditions which have created this violence. Every heartbeat, every human heartbeat is sacred to me. And that is what has compelled me to work as I have for the last 15 years to save lives, and stop people dying.
Another devastating blow from Lowkey. He condemns the conditions in which this attack has happened, that has forced Hamas and Israel into a war that has brought civilians into the conflict. That's what we should be condemning, and that's what we should be talking about. And Piers Morgan's attempt to bring it back to October 7th is malicious, and it's done on purpose to distract from the entire point of the conversation, which is why he brings Lowkey back on that. He says, well, you tweeted this thing on October 7th. He's not bringing anything new. He's not bringing common sense to the centre ground and showing you, a resolution to this conflict. He's saying, look, these are the talking points I know of. What do you think about them? What's your point of view? Every time you type in Palestine, I don't know about you guys, but you type in Palestine on YouTube, Piers Morgan will come up 3 out of the 10 results. That's massive. He's got a prominent platform to talk about this issue. Instead of talking about ending the conflict, instead of talking about a ceasefire, maybe he has mentioned it, I don't know. But clearly here, he's not talking about a stop to the war. And you want to investigate what happened on October 7th, you can go down there, or you can do your investigations and come up with, a report on that if that's what you want, Piers. But asking pro-Palestinian activists to condemn a terrorist attack that has nothing to do with them is frankly ridiculous in the face of what's currently happening in Palestine. And the fact that you're peddling IDF narratives, as pointed out by Lowkey, shows why you are the most dangerous man on the platform to talk about Israel-Palestine, because you might look like you're coming from a common sense position, but actually you're just doing what everyone else is doing, and that's repeating Israeli talking points. If you want some real news for real people, subscribe to my channel and check out my other video on Palestine. Peace out.